we can also do this kind of work. I call it lightening the implicit load. If we're working with a memory that our mother carried, for example, because we carry the intense things that our parents experienced within us as well. Our bodies are shared. We share our bodies with past generations. I'm sure that you've read recently, it's so important and interesting for us as constellation facilitators, the epigenetic information that when our grandmothers became pregnant with our mothers, the cells that made us were there in the fetus's body, right? So we were touched by all of these three bodies, our own body, our mother's body, our grandmother's body, in the moment of conception and shortly after conception of our mother. So we have lived the bodies of past generations. Now we carry more deeply within us the epigenetic changes that have happened for our families. I'll show you epigenetics really quickly because I think it makes it, this demonstration makes it a little bit clearer for us to begin to catch a bit of the enormity of what we are living with. So could I get some folks who don't mind being filmed? Will you raise your hands? Will you help me? Are you Anna? Please come. Anna will be our DNA. So she'll be our DNA. Do you mind being touched? Okay. And I need 3 people who are willing to touch Anna. Please come up. Come, Naomi, and Oleg, and Sarah. Shira. Thank you. Now, whoever wants to sit down sits down and holds her on the bottom of the legs. And you put your arms, oh, I'm sorry, I just stepped on your hand. Oh, put your arms around the top, not around her belly, and you around the top. So these folks are now representing the protein sheath that covers our DNA. So the protein sheath that covers our DNA actually will open and allow the expression of the genes that are under this protein sheath, or close and stop the expression of the genes that are under the protein sheath. Here's the amazing thing. In Canada, there's an epigeneticist named Moshe Zhyf, SZYF. And what he has done is he has discovered that the traumas that we live through, the big traumas that we live through, become engraved on our epigenetic sheath. So, for example, he worked with the Quebec ice storm. In the early 90s, there was a terrible ice storm in Quebec. Let's say that Anna lived in Quebec in the early 90s. Terrible ice storm in Quebec, where for 3 months everything was frozen to the ground. You can look on Google Images and you can see the huge like walking man electrical lines that are so big, bigger than this building. Those crumpled to the ground from the ice. The ice was so heavy, it took out all services, it took out all electricity, it took out running water, it took out garbage collection. People lived wherever they could find a fireplace and a little bit of food together, huddled together for 3 months. Many people died. It was quite an extraordinary natural disaster. What Moshe Zhyf discovered was that everybody who had lived through the Quebec ice storm had the same marking on their epigenetic sheath. Every person who survived the Quebec ice storm had the same deviation in their epigenetic sheath. He says that in 40 years, we will be able to read the history of our family's movement through time from the markings on the epigenetic sheath, just like we can see what years are good and what years are bad for trees when we look at a cross-section of a tree. We are written on at the epigenetic level by the experiences of our families. It gives me goosebumps. We are changed by history. Our families are changed by history. We carry history within us. And this is another reason, of course, why constellation work is so important. Thank Thank you very much for being being the epigenetic sheath. Yes, of course, Larry.
So if we can read that on there, but if someone has done healing, do you still see it?
Oh, if someone has done healing, do we still see it? The beautiful thing, this is what I do know. I don't know about what happens with the sheath itself. Well, I imagine the marks still stay there. What I do know that changes when we do the healing is it's very cool. What we're most impacted by with trauma is our stress systems. Trauma changes the way that the stress system of the body responds. Trauma makes us more reactive to stress. And the healing work that we do directly impacts the way that we respond to stress. It directly decreases, it calms the amygdala, gets the amygdala held and nourished and nurtured. And so we get to have a direct impact for ourselves and the people that we work with in decreasing the amount of stress and changing, really fundamentally changing the way the bodies that come into relationship with us respond to stress. I'm waiting for Moshe Zhif's research to look at the sheath after there's significant healing, but I think that the work of Constellations is the most significant healing that I know, and I don't see any scientists doing before and after studies. Not yet. Yes, coming to you.
I've just lost my thought about.
Can I give you the mic while you think?
So, when you change your nervous system through after healing through responses to stress, then does your attachment style change?
Yes.
So for children, they can evolve a different attachment style.
Oh yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Very much so. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm really excited what you're saying and how you're talking and everything. It's just spot on, so cool. And it's the effect that is no longer the same.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the moment of time and the markings are still there.
Yeah.
Within our DNA and our cells. Yeah, but the effect of the stress is no longer.
Yeah.
Yeah,
This
is where the change occurs.
Yes, this is what I've found in the research. Magical, magical.